Hospitality Portfolio Highlight by Fatoumata Diakite. We'll be going over brief overviews of the legal practice, commitment to providing high-quality legal services, and focus on navigating complex legal landscapes. The first section of the portfolio highlight is licensing and regulation. So, to operate lawfully, hospitality organizations have to adhere to many rules and standards, including health and safety regulations, food safety regulations, and licensing requirements. In order to prevent legal conflicts with the tourism regulatory authority, all enterprises in the hotel industry must get the required licenses and permits. So, license requirements for opening a hotel or restaurant. Number one, you have to get a business license. And then you get a health department permit, which comply with health and safety regulations. And you obtain necessary permits from the local health department, which include food handling permits and such. Third, you need your alcohol license if it applies. If you are operating an establishment that serves alcoholic beverages. Then you need to get your zoning and land use permits, and then fire department approved, which has to comply with fire safety codes. You need to obtain approval from the fire department after meeting safety requirements. And then lastly, you get your building permits. So the major violations leading to license revocation. Health and safety violations is a big one. Alcohol-related violations is another one, which could be selling alcohol to underage individuals or over-serving, which can lead to disturbances or accidents. And then lastly, fire safety violations. If you fail to address fire hazards or comply with safety codes, maybe it could be a lack of proper fire exits or emergency equipment. Well, all of those are reasons for your license to get revoked. And then we move on to premises liability. So within the premises liability, there's the responsibility, the portfolio goes over the responsibility of hotel or restaurant owners in terms of customer safety. So first things first, premises liability, we need to talk about a duty, right? So restaurants and hotels, hospitality establishments have a duty of care that they owe to anyone who is entering their establishment. I would say definitely a duty of care is a legal obligation that requires a particular standard of conduct, meaning there's a legal responsibility. Some duties hospitality managers may encounter are the duty to provide a reasonably safe premise. This means if there is a water spill, make sure that there is a yellow cone stating that. If there is, for instance, a flood or something wrong with a pipe, make sure the customers are aware of these issues. If someone is wounded or damaged while on the premises of your building, the company may be held accountable for any of the losses or injuries caused. So to reduce the risk of liability, hospitality organizations take precautions to guarantee the safety and security of their properties. This can include inspections, routine safety inspections, implementing safety measures, and training the staff to correctly identify and be able to step in. So a case study that I want to mention is Liebeck versus McDonald's. And this is a case study that is an example of negligence. So there was a woman that went to get coffee at McDonald's. When she received the coffee was piping hot, very hot, that when she spilled the coffee on her accidentally, it gave her third-degree burn. She went to the hospital and was in the hospital for a couple weeks. And then she ended up suing McDonald's and was ordered 20,000 in compensatory damages and 2.7 million in punitive damages. Wow. Now we move on to employment law. So the portfolio talks in depth knowledge of employment laws and regulations, experience in handling discrimination, wrongful termination and harassment cases, and the rights of employees in the hospitality sector. So first, let me say that employment laws, let's define that. Employment laws are a set of federal and state laws that protect the rights of employees and ensures fairness and promotes safe working environments. Safe working environments is the key word, right? The purpose of law is to protect the employees. This includes upholding anti-discrimination laws and ensuring safe working conditions. Wage and hour laws are also a significant component of employment law, especially in the hotel management. Within, hospitality firms mostly abide by the Fair Labor Standards Act, which guarantees that employees are fairly rewarded by their efforts. And underneath the Fair Labor Act are things like minimum wage, overtime pay, right? So these are things that are covered under there. Employees have a right to safe and healthy working environment. This falls under OSHA. Okay. Food and alcohol regulations. So for this part of the portfolio is specialized knowledge in food and alcohol industry regulation and successful navigation of licensing and compliance issues. So the regulations that are talked about in this part of the portfolio has to do with the food and safety regulations in Pennsylvania, which is the district that I am familiar with. So underneath that, one of the regulations in Pennsylvania is that you must be at least 17 years old to operate a bar, offer alcohol or sell alcohol off premises. There are also store hours for the state monopolies. One of the unique food regulations in Pennsylvania is the milk sanitation law, which basically is just any milk that is being sold or produced needs a department issued permission. We also in Pennsylvania have the Food Employee Certification Act. So these are just to name a few. And now we move on to contract law. So a contract in the hospitality industry is an agreement or a guarantee signed between two or more parties that courts can enforce. It is basically a system of rules that governs relationships and the legality of a contract entered by two or more people. You need at least two more people. And legality for a contract to have a legality is many factors, including age. You have to be of a legal age to be able to enter into a contract. Other factors like mental health issues, you have to be of sane mind, right? And the amount of exercise involved. Okay, and for a contract to be valid, you need, for it to be lawful, you need an offer, a consideration, an acceptance, and a capability. That is what makes a contract lawful. There's actually a case study of organizers of a Passover holiday celebrating over 500 Orthodox Jews. And they sued a resort, saying that the resort breached their agreement to accommodation because the resort gave up their spot to a group called the LPGA to make room for, which stands for Ladies Professional Golf Association. The resort didn't give any reason when it informed the organizers in the letter, and it terminated their contract, and they claimed that they had no time to find another space. Ultimately, the case was settled, but this is an example of a contract that was breached. Okay. Now we move on to intellectual property. In this part of the portfolio, intellectual property talks about the role of trademark, copyright, and patent law, the importance of intellectual property for restaurants, hotels, and other hospitality ventures. And there is also a case study in there. So intellectual property is important because the protection of intellectual property is crucial for the success of hospitality ventures. Yeah, patents, trademarks, and copyrights. They safeguard a company's brand and their creative work. Especially in the hospitality industry, they rely heavily on brand reputation and consumer loyalty. Intellectual property helps secure this. So the World Intellectual Property Organization refers to intellectual property as the creation of the mind, such as inventions, literacy, and artistic works, designs and symbols, names and images used in commerce. So trademark, for example, trademark is a name or symbol on a product to show that it was made by a particular company. And a trademark cannot be used by other companies without permission. Trademarks are used to boost businesses and they give credibility. Like, for example, especially in the hospitality industry, if you walk into a restaurant, if a customer walks into a restaurant and sees a Heinz ketchup bottle, that is something that many people are familiar with. It'll generate a positive response to the restaurant as consumers, they recognize Heinz as a company that manufactures quality products. Okay. Next, we have crisis management and law. So crisis, in this part of the portfolio, we talk about, there's talks of specialized in crisis management and legal response. There are legal responsibilities of hospitality businesses during emergency or crises. And there is also a case study in there. To define, a crisis would be natural disasters, medical emergencies, accidents, injuries, and etc. I would say that the hospitality industry has had a fair share of crisis management, especially tornadoes, tsunamis, or even a global pandemic like the coronavirus. They can appear at any time, so it is important for these organizations to have an effective strategy in order to run a smooth business. Now, in the hospitality industry, an effective crisis management plan is put in place for many reasons. One of them is to reduce financial and operational losses in case of these events, any unanticipated events. Another reason is the company's reputation. The company's reputation could be at risk if the crises are not managed properly, because the confidence may be impacted by the customers will look at how they respond to crises, and it could either make or break their businesses. So, under the duty of care, hospitality industries or hotels are required to give visitors a safe and secure atmosphere, guaranteeing their safety by putting emergency evacuation plans into action and alerting visitors to any known dangers or hazards on the property. If they fail to meet these services, it will be a result of the breach of duty. Now, lastly, on the slide is an interview that I had did with Mr. Nacklin. So Mr. Nacklin is a young entrepreneur who is in the field of photography in the hospitality industry. Mr. Nacklin's business consists of capturing the beauties of hotels, venues, restaurants, and many events related with weddings and ceremonies. Most of my interview with Mr. Nacklin is centered around him explaining possible legal challenges that he has encountered in his field and the steps that he has taken to prevent future shortcomings. And that is the highlights of this portfolio. The portfolio is very insightful, and whoever will be reading it, I hope that you get some good insights and retain a lot of very useful information.